Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. Today, we're going to be doing the Around the League East edition, and we're just going to jump straight in. You know the premise of this. You've listened to the North one, hopefully, last week. Now we're going to jump into the East, and we are going to start with the AFC East for all of you AFC fans. We started the NFC last time. This time, we're going to hit the AFC first, and we're going to be starting with a really, really good team, the Buffalo Bills. They are just good all over. I don't know what you can really say here. They've just stacked on stacked on stacked. They are AFC superpower, and you're going to have a lot of fun if you draft a Buffalo Bill this year. Something that probably couldn't have been said a fair few years ago. Obviously, you've got Josh Allen, who for many is going to be the QB1 in most formats. He can run. He can throw, a lot of touchdown potential. It's really good there. And obviously, you've got some solid wide receivers. Although maybe there's a bit of a shake-up there, and we'll talk about that now. Stephon Diggs is a first-round wide receiver. Maybe not quite in the upper echelons like your Tyreek Hills or previously Devontae Adams, although this year we yet to see what happens. But he is a fantastic wide receiver, and you'd be very lucky to have him on your bench. A lot of people try and get that stack. It's a very, very difficult stack to get between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But, the targets are funneled towards him because the rest of his supporting cast hasn't been great. I know a lot of people said Gabe Davis was going to be great because he had a fantastic end of season closer in 2021, I believe, where he scored like 3 touchdowns, loads of points or something like that. But he hasn't really lived up to the hype last year where he was drafted probably in the 5th round in a lot of places. And maybe they've drafted to solve that problem a little bit. And I think the problem they've tried to solve it with, or the solution for that problem, is Dalton Kincaid. Now, Dalton Kincaid in college was a really, really interesting tight end receiver style hybrid guy. He worked really well in the slot, and he was the first tight end off the board, where we were expecting a lot of people to say Michael Mayer as being the purest tight end was going to be the first off the board. But he is more in the vein of that Kyle Pitts receiver type tight end, and something that I think the Bills were lacking. They mostly play one tight end sets. Maybe they're going to start playing 2 and put Dalton Kincaid as a slot guy. I think he's going to be a really interesting pickup and probably go quite high in rookie drafts. Probably quite alongside Sam Laporta. I think he's got a lot of potential to be good early. And obviously, the running back room has always been a problem. They've lost Devin Singletary. I don't think that's much of a loss. It leaves a good room for James Cook to be that hybrid passing running guy. They still haven't got a great running game. It's going to be a passing heavy game. And I think the 3 main targets you're going to see for Josh Allen are going to be Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, and James Cook, with everything else going towards Gabe Davis and the rest of the cast, maybe Dawson Knox on the goal line. It's an interesting team. They are solid. They're really solid on defense as well. Not much more you can say about that, but you probably want a bit of Bills in your roster. Now, moving on to the Miami Dolphins, another team who've been really, really good in acquisition. Mainly on the defensive side, they got Jalen Ramsey, boosts their defense massively. He sits alongside Xavier Howard in that secondary. It's really good. It's really good secondary. Maybe less so on the pass rush, but they're going to get a lot of interceptions. They're going to force that. The question remains, however, is Tua going to be healthy enough to do a full season and service elite talent like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they are a 1A, 1B. Tyreek Hill probably elevates himself into the first round. Jalen Waddle is probably going to go late second, maybe, just because there has to be an alpha in that team. But you want a piece of that. Where they're maybe missing out in this whole thing is tight end. Obviously, it's a 49ers tree system that they've got. They run the ball a lot. And I think where you're going to see a lot of surprising rookie runs is going to be from Devin A.K.A, and that's going to be my pick for the running back over in Miami. I think it's a great landing spot. He is undersized, yeah, but so is Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. He's a speedster, yes, so is Raheem Mostert, but he's got legs on him, and Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson have not. I think this team is going to be really interesting at wide receiver because they're going to get a lot of balls into Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think that's going to be a very narrow tree there, but they are so athletically gifted and so speedy that I really, really like it. Tua remains a question mark, but at times in the season, he was the best quarterback out there last year until he got injured. But they have got a reasonably good backup in Mike White. So it's worthwhile keeping an eye on Mike White. If you've got a spare roster slot, maybe slot him in there because Tua will probably get injured at some point in the season. I know he's been learning to fall, but I don't know really what that means. But yeah, the Dolphins, again, remain a really interesting team. I probably pick their defense above any else in the AFC East, but we'll get to that in a minute. Maybe the Jets compete there. But before we get into the Jets, we'll take a look at the New England Patriots. Ugh, it's gross, isn't it? Bill Belichick likes picking weird guys, who don't really do that job and they convert them. Yeah, it's a weird one. Juju Smith-Schuster is the one that jumps out to me here. He is not a number one wide receiver. He's never been a number one wide receiver. When he was asked to be, he was not. He fell down the charts massively in the Steelers pecking order. What he is a great second, but they haven't got a first here. I'm just looking at this lineup, but Kendrick Bourne is not a first. He's a second. Devontae Parker maybe lost a step. Tyquan Thornton is a gadget guy slash burner that you want down the edge. I don't think this passing attack to the wide receivers is going to be interesting. I think any Juju Smith-Schuster owners are worried about it, especially as Mac Jones was rivaled by a 7th round pick. Was Bailey Zappi picked on 7th? I think it was 7th round pick last year. Oh no, he's 4th round. Maybe not giving him the credit, but he was amazing. Bailey Zappi coming out of college, he did a job. He didn't look much worse than Mac Jones when he played. There's going to be a lot of controversy, and I don't think this is going to be a great team offensively. I think the lone bright spot I've got here is probably Mike Gesicki. Now, Mike Gesicki is a big-bodied guy. He is 6'6", 247 here. Wow, he is a big guy, but he's not a big guy blocker. He's a big guy catcher. Hunter Henry, he's your blocker. He is 6'5", 250. He's a bit more stocky and stout. And they're going to roll out, I think, in a lot of two tight end sets and let Ramondre Stevenson and James Robinson, who I think is a great pickup, and I think he's elevated himself into a running back 2 position officially. Where he's got a chance to be the pass catcher, the James White of that team these days. For those of you who remember how good James White was as a pass catcher out of the backfield, I think he's going to be fantastic, and I'm really interested in seeing how he plays as that number 2 to Ramondre Stevenson's number 1. You know what? I wish James Robinson was a number 1 because he was great when he was on that Jaguars team and out of nowhere, a 1,000-yard season in his rookie season. Now, finally, get onto the New York Jets. New York Jets is really interesting to me, not only because they've got Aaron Rodgers, and I've got some stake in Aaron Rodgers in Dynasty, but Breece Hall coming back off injury, who was electric in the first few games last year. He is fantastic. I think their signing of Israel, oh wow, this is going to be difficult to say, Abanikanda. We're going to call him Israel Anaconda because that's easier to say. Was interesting because that maybe pushes Michael Carter out of the situation, but it is Breece Hall's backfield because Aaron Rodgers needs someone to throw to, and Breece Hall can throw it. Breece Hall can catch it, and he's got a great wide receiver core there. It's not amazing, the best in the world, but he's brought over a lot of guys that he wanted. Alan Lazard, Brandon Cobb are just going to be comfort blankets for him. They're going to get bit plays, but Garrett Wilson coming off Offensive Rookie of the Year, Corey Davis will be involved, and he is a big-bodied guy who will probably split reps a bit more with Alan Lazard. But I think this is if you're drafting from this team, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at Breece Hall, you're looking at Garrett Wilson, and those are the guys that you really want on your fantasy team. And obviously their defense with the reigning defensive rookie of the year, Sauce Gardner, I think you're going to be playing some really good football there. And obviously they've got Greg Leg. I got to mention him as a kicker because no one else really to mention from the kicker side, aside from maybe the Patriots who drafted Chad Ryland in the 4th. Yeah, they moved up to 112 to pick him up in the 4th. So that's an interesting one from the AFC East there. There's a lot of players who I think show a lot of value in the AFC East. And we're going to do the same as we did for the Northern team, and we're going to draft a fantasy lineup. And I think the guys you're really keying in on here, at quarterback, Josh Allen is going to win out. At running back, you've got a really good tandem, probably undervalued tandem in Breece Hall and Ramondre Stevenson. Obviously, the wide receivers is where it sticks out here. Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, both wide receiver ones. I think Gesicki probably takes it at the tight end, although probably maybe actually I might consider Kincaid there. So I'll put a question mark around Kincaid because I think he could be really valuable as well. I think Gesicki will return to form. Waddle is a brilliant flex position to have as well. Chad Ryland, I'm going to give it to Chad Ryland as a kicker for the Patriots. The Jets defense absolutely stands out, and my rookie pick of this whole bunch because of the fit, not because of when the draft capital he had, but the fit is Devin A.K.A. I think he is going to be absolutely electric in that 49ers style Miami offense there. Right. Short and sharp, getting through that lot. We'll come back on the other side and we will take a look at the NFC East shortly. Right, competition time, guys. Rules are on the screen as you see them now, but part one is we're trying to drive subscriptions to rugbywithpads.com. You can find all the information here, but for every single subscription you make from £1 a month, you can get all the benefits that you would do on a normal Patreon. But as you go up, you can also get merch with it as well. And this is how we're selling our merch that you've seen me wearing during some of these YouTube videos as well. If you enter for as little as £1, you'll be entered into the competition. There's bonus entries for higher tiers as well. Now, we'll announce the winner of that on the pod once we've got a minimum of 10 subscribers, and then part two comes in. So get ready already. Go to youtube.com @rugbywithpads, click subscribe and comment on any of the videos. And there's a fair few. We bring out the videos at the same time as we do on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you'll be entered into a competition to win either a t-shirt or a pop socket. It's free, but we must make sure that part one is won first. Let's drive that traffic over to rugbywithpads.com and the draw announcements will be on the pod. I'll keep you updated with what we're doing and put some stuff on socials. Right, back to the pod. Hello everybody, and we are back with, for those of you watching YouTube, only a minor costume change and a 2-day delay between recording. We've also got a slightly different setup, so you might get a slightly different view from over there and hopefully slightly better lighting, I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. Anyway, enough about that. Let's jump back into what we really want to look at, which is the depth charts for the NFC East. So we did the AFC East. I'm just catching myself up. Dallas Cowboys next. That's who we're going to look at. And obviously the Dallas Cowboys are Dallas Cowboys. They've got quite a few fancy relevant folks going on here. Obviously they've lost Zeke thanks to a cap casualty cut. I think it was cut rather than just traded. No, he hasn't found a home elsewhere. But Tony Pollard is going to be the guy in that defense, or in that offense, sorry. Obviously they did draft Juice Vaughn. He's a very tiny man. He's 5'7", I think. 5'6", 176. He is the son of one of the offensive coordinators over there. I think the running backs coach or one of the scouts potentially. But Juice Vaughn, I don't think will play much of relevance, and I don't think anyone else in this backfield will do. I think it's going to be Tony Pollard's. He's going to be the starting running back and the bell cow. I think that really does well for him as a fantasy asset, and I think maybe he's a little bit overhyped because we haven't seen him really take that workload fully on. He still had someone like Zeke available, and maybe you'll see Ronald Jones or Malik Davis jump in with the occasional rep, but I think what we'll actually see is this be Tony Pollard's. He will lead this offense, and I think that's what they're looking to do, but they are going to lean on the passing attack as well, which has improved. I think before it was CeeDee Lamb and then no one else really. They had Michael Gallup, which wasn't really working out as him being a number 2, but they have got Brandon Cooks in for what was pennies, I think it was, in a trade with the Texans. He's going to be a fantastic target for Dak, who I think is going to be fantasy relevant, but I don't really think any of these guys are really going to be outstanding. And apart from Tony Pollard, who's going to be outstanding just for the sake of volume more than anything. Out of the tight ends, I think Loon Shoemaker might make a difference as a rookie, but it's always difficult for a tight end to come in and make an impact as a rookie in the past. But the real star of the show here is their defense, and if you can get their defense, do it. It's a set and forget. They've got so many great pieces. Micah Parsons, Stephon Gilmore, Javon Curse, oh man, Trayvon Diggs. It just looks really good. They've improved on an absolute strength of their team, and they will be interesting moving forward. And I think that will help the offense just be more efficient. And is they have come out and said they want to run the ball more, so maybe it's going to be Tony Pollard really going quite high in fantasy drafts this year. The New York Giants were a bit of a surprise last year. I think Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley as a pairing were really interesting. Daniel Jones having those spike weeks with a lot of on the floor, on a lot of game on the floor. I think we'll see less of that this season because he's got some more serious weapons out of this wide receiver room. I don't know who it is, yeah, but they've got a lot of guys. Isaiah Hodgins came out as the number one. Jalen Hyatt is a good slot guy. Darius Slayton has re-signed as well. Paris Campbell was signed from the Colts. I don't think any of them are fancy relevant from day one. We just don't know who's going to play there. But of course, you've got Saquon Barkley. He is going to be a bell cow. I think he will go in the first round this year, where he dropped into the kind of early seconds. That's late first. I think he will be off the board pretty early because they will run the ball a lot and will run the ball through Saquon a lot. That's if he doesn't hole in. See how it happens with his contract situation, but really fantastic weapon there, and he will continue to be great. But I think Darren Waller really improves that team a lot, and you know, he's maybe my favorite tight end in this division. That doesn't have a lot of fantastic tight ends. Darren Waller a bit older. I think he's getting into his late 20s, early 30s here. Yeah, he's 30. I say that old being a 34-year-old man, but he was great last year when he was on the field. I really do think he can be an impact maker and probably be that true number one pass catcher in this offense, because I can't really see anyone else really jumping out at me and saying we want the ball a lot. They've got a sophomore wide receiver from Wan'Dale Robinson who's a bit of a gadget player. Jalen Hyatt could well fall the same way. Not sure how it goes really. Elsewhere, Graham Gano, as if we want to pick on kickers, is going to be decent, but nothing really to write home about there. Either Philadelphia Eagles are looking stacked. Jalen Hurts is up there for QB1 this year. I really think he's going to be absolutely electric. DeAndre Swift has landed himself in a great position, I think, in front of Rashad Penny, who is perpetually injured, Kenneth Gainwell, who is a bit part player, and Boston Scott, who only scores touchdowns against the Giants. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will continue to be an amazing 1-2 pair. I don't know who the third is, but I don't think it matters. I think the third is probably Dallas Goedert, although maybe he's lost a step. Yeah, I'm not saying much about the tight end position in this team. I don't really like it, but they've got a great offensive line. I think they will run the ball a lot, whether it's Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift, or Rashad Penny. I think it'll be a rotating cast. I don't think we'll see DeAndre Swift getting the volume we did a couple of years ago, but he will be very useful in what is a very efficient team. And AJ Brown and Devontae Smith will mop up in those targets when they do get them, because Jalen Hurts wants to throw. He's come out and said he wants to throw. So whether they let him, we'll have to see. He was obviously great last year with his dual threat nature. Elsewhere, we've got a decent, a very decent defensive front. I really do like it. I think they're going to be absolutely fantastic again. They've improved once more. And even they've looked out in the secondary as well, with James Bradbury coming back. There was another big name that came back as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. Darius Slay, obviously, cut and then re-signed in the same day. Again, they look great, and they look tooled up to potentially be one of the NFC superpowers and potentially take it all the way back to the NFC Championship game and probably the Super Bowl as well in a very weak NFC. And finally, the Commanders, who confuse me. I think we'll probably see a coaching casualty at some point early on in the year. I think Ron Rivera will not be with them for too much longer. Going into the season with Sam Howell, an unproven, might as well be a rookie. He played one game last year. He was good. Yeah, he's shown in college he can be a decent dual threat, but Jacoby Brissett is probably the premier, I'm not American, premier backup quarterback. So I think we'll see him play more than 3 games this year at the very least, while they try and work out what's happening, especially if there's a coaching change. Brian Robinson will probably rule this field, but they did draft Chris Rodriguez. I don't think it was particularly high yet in the 6th round. But then again, I don't think Brian Robinson was picked particularly high because of some off the field issues potentially. No, third round, he was a decent running back. Antonio Gibson falling out of love a little bit. Maybe they're going to use him more as a slot receiver weapon. But I think where it should be good is Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson ready to take that sophomore leap, but it's where they get the delivery from these guys. I mean, Mari Cooper did well when Jacoby Brissett was under center, but whether we're going to see Jacoby Brissett under center or not is another question, because we could see a lot more of Sam Howell than maybe we want to. Tight end, Logan Thomas has lost a step. He's entering his age 32 season. Yeah, he's 31 now. We're not really, looking towards that. And their defense isn't looking as solid as once was. Yeah, a lot of good names here. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. We like them a lot. Kendall Fuller, yeah, fantastic at the corner there. However, Chase Young, there must be something wrong with him, because he didn't have his fifth year option picked up. So really confused about what they're going to be doing over there on the pass rush side of things. But the Washington Commanders, no one really to write home about. So overall in the NFC, there's an NFC East. There's some good players, but I think it's very heavily weighted towards two teams, and the Giants and Washington, despite having maybe a couple of guys, they're really not going to be focusing on them. So let's draft our team. I think with relative degree of certainty, we're going to go with Hurts as our pick for QB in the NFC East. We're going to look at Saquon and Pollard. I think just as volume and skill players, I think they are a fantastic RB 1-2. At wide receiver 1 and 2, remember we're going against the AFC East, who have some fantastic wide receivers, but we've got some good guys here. I think AJ Brown and CD Lamb are the obvious picks. We've already talked about Waller being the obvious pick for the Giants. They're at tight end, and at flex, you've got a lot of options as well, because there isn't not much of a teardrop when it comes to the NFC East pass catches. And I really like Scary Terry. He would be a wide receiver 1 in other areas, but maybe he's just not going to get that delivery, which drops him down a little bit. Graham Gano is going to be my kicker for giggles, I guess. And the defense is an obvious choice with the Cowboys. Rookie, still not convinced who it's going to be. I put Jalen Hyatt here because out of anyone, he stands the most chance to break out. I like Luke Shoemaker, but I don't think he's going to break out. He wasn't really on my kind of tier list when it came to tight ends coming into the season. Jalen Hyatt was, I guess, and he has the most chance to make a move against what is a rather mediocre wide receiver room over there in New York. Right, we'll take a very short break and we'll come back on the other side with our final rankings of, we'll do our head-to-head of the NFC East and the AFC East. So let's take a look at these teams, and I think it's pretty close all in all. Now, obviously, we've done the Roto Trade Analyzer. Both these teams look like they would have a chance to playoffs. I think with a lot of these, we're going to get that because we're picking the best players. We're not having to really dive deep, and we're not competing with anyone. We're narrowing a focus in one way only. But I think in my head, the NFC East gets it, not just based on these, but going player by player. I mean, Hurts versus Allen, I think it's almost a dead rubber, but I'll probably give it to Allen over there. If we're looking at Saquon versus Ramondre and Pollard versus, why they put Devon A.K.A. over Breece Hall, but against Breece Hall, either way, I think the NFC gets it on both sides, so it's 2-1 at that point. Wide receiver, though, I think the AFC takes it on both fronts, with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs being a very potent 1-2 there. But at tight end, Gesicki in an unproven system versus Darren Waller in an unproven system. I'm taking Darren Waller just because of what he's done on recency bias, and I think he's just a better pass catcher. Yes, Mike Gesicki is only really a pass catcher, but I still think Darren Waller is better, and he's probably I think he's the most highly paid tight end this year. I think he made it into the money team on PFF. At flex is a tough one here. I think I'm going to give it to Scary Terry because he's the number 1 in that system. And if we look at the stack, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Wall, yeah, you're getting all the targets, but you're diluting some of your effort here. Kicker, I'm going to give it to Graham Gano. It would have been Chad Ryland here, but I couldn't find him on the system. So Nick Folk, who I think has been let go now. So yeah, it's definitely Graham Gano on that side. And Jets versus Cowboys in defense. I think it's going to be the Cowboys, but I am going to give the nod to A.K.A. as the rookie here. I think he's got a better chance of success in that Miami system. So with a score of 6-4, I think the NFC just about takes it. So they will move on into the bracket, which we'll do at some point. We'll sum it all up as well. I think this analysis is relatively complete. I mean, yeah, where these guys suffer in the AFC is in the running back room and the tight end room, whereas the guys in the NFC, they're good all over. It's a solid roster, and probably the NFC East is on paper the best, one of the two best divisions, and I think these are probably two of the best divisions anyway. So this is always going to be really tough. But the NFC East definitely the best division in the NFC. So that's your lot. So that's answered that question. If you're going to be drafting a theme team in the East, go for the NFC. Not that you would ever do that, but hopefully you've enjoyed this and it gives you a bit of a trip down players who I think are a bit more relevant. I've tried to condense this episode compared to the last one where we were explaining some of the context behind it, and hopefully you enjoyed this slightly shorter format. If you did, drop us a like, subscribe. As always, you can support the pod if you go to now rugbywithpads.com. We've URL'd it all up. You can go and support the pod there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all other places. YouTube at Rugby with Pads. If you watch this, thanks for watching this. If you listen to it, thanks for listening as well. Drop a subscribe, drop a rating as well. Always helps. I'll stop grandstanding. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on the virtual gridiron.